Joining us now, NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba and law professor at the University of California, Davis, and author of Dollars for Life, the Anti-Abortion Movement and the Fall of the Republican Establishment, Mary Ziegler. Ladies, thank you. I want to play a little bit from Arizona voters, women who are talking about this ruling. Let's listen.
I can't imagine the women that are going to be in situations that can't get the care they need.
I'm 69, so we got a lot of rights during my lifetime. The government tried to step in and change things to the 1800s is, on the surface, ridiculous, but it's very hurtful to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, the state wasn't a state back then, and there was a grand total in the population of 9,000 people at best, potentially just 6,000 people. Monica, the White House is obviously using abortion as a major campaign issue. What are they saying about this?
Exactly, Katie. They view abortion as the issue that will be the most mobilizing and the most motivating for voters in November. And that's because of what they've seen from special elections, special ballot measures, the 2022 midterm election, certainly. And then also when you see the reaction to something like what happened on Tuesday with this Civil War era ruling, the Biden campaign says that all of that is confirmed, that this is really a moment where they want to seize on this anger from people about how could you revert to something like this, and they want to really capitalize on it. And that is why you saw them on Monday, after former President Trump put out a video with his own changing and evolving abortion stance. They responded to that very quickly. Then Tuesday, the abortion ruling came down, and now they're announcing a 7-figure ad buy in Arizona that specifically is going to target women, young voters, and Latino voters in the state who feel like this is an issue that does resonate with them. And the president, in this new ad that you're seeing there play on your screen, specifically frames this as an issue of losing your freedoms, and that if Donald Trump is reelected, what other freedoms will he come after? That's a question the president poses before vowing, "I will fight like hell to get your freedom back." So this is really an instance, Katie, where there have been a lot of really key moments in the post-Dobbs era. But this is the time where I think over the course of the last week or so, the Biden campaign has acted the fastest in terms of trying to really jump in on this and go on offense. And that's why you're also going to see the vice president there tomorrow in a political campaign event in Tucson, where she is expected to really go after Donald Trump and brand him as responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, which he often takes credit for all on his own. Katie.
Monica Alba, thank you very much. Sounds like there's a protest in Lafayette Square outside of the White House right below you. Sounds like it's pretty loud. Monica, thank you very much again. Mary, let's talk about the ramifications here. The Biden saying that Donald Trump and the Republicans are putting women's lives at risk. It might sound like hyperbole, but what we keep hearing is that when doctors don't have a clear idea of what it means when a woman's life is at risk, they push it up to the very edge when a woman's life is actually in severe danger, or when it's in danger of making it so that she can't have kids again. When we're talking about Arizona, it would seem like a pretty easy decision to roll back this outrage for the Republican legislature, a Republican legislature, by the way, which already put in I think it's a 15-week ban, to say, no, we're going to leave our 15-week ban in place. We're going to repeal this Civil War era ban. What's going on?
Well, I think Arizona, it's also worth remembering, passed a personhood law in 2021, like the most sweeping in the nation. So Arizona Republicans have, I think, a debt, or feel they have a debt, to the anti-abortion movement. And reverting to a 15-week ban, just quite simply, for anti-abortion voters isn't good enough. So I think you see Arizona Republicans sort of between a rock and a hard place, where on the one hand, they're afraid, deathly afraid of alienating these base voters who believe in fetal personhood. And on the other hand, they're well aware that their position is deeply unpopular and potentially politically going to cost them in 2024 in November.
Let me ask you about doctors, because the state's AG has said she's not going to prosecute. But what if there's a new AG in a few years? What would the statute of limitations be if a doctor performs an abortion? Can they be held accountable for that abortion 6 years, 7 years from now if there's a new AG?
Yeah, there are statutes of limitations that are certainly more than a few years. The other thing, of course, is that county prosecutors or other prosecutors could choose to pursue charges under this law, even if the state AG is not going to. And so I'm not sure if the state AG's vow is going to be reassuring enough for physicians. It's worth emphasizing, of course, physicians have spent decades training to become doctors, right? And the fear of losing your medical license and literally going to prison for what would be viewed as a serious charge is not something a lot of physicians are willing to do, especially when these laws are written in ways that are not medical, right? I mean, there is no sort of medical language in this that's easy for physicians to parse. So I don't think the state AG's promise is going to be enough. We've also seen that these laws have had knock-on effects for other people seeking obstetric and gynecological care, because a lot of physicians don't want to be faced with this dilemma, right? They don't want to be faced with the question of treating a patient with a very serious medical condition and going to jail, right? And so many of them don't work in those states anymore. One of the most clear examples being Idaho, which is one of the few states that now will have a law as extreme as the one we're going to see enforced in Arizona.
Donald Trump is very wishy-washy on this, or at least he's trying to be. He's taking credit for installing the justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. Remember, it was a big promise during the campaign. He said he was going to do it, and he did do it. And he's taken credit, saying it's a beautiful thing that they were able to stop abortions from happening. But then he's also now trying to claim that this was never about abortion. This was only about states' rights. He's trying to have all sides of the issue. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you that he knows that his position is potentially unpopular. We also have this sort of weird kind of two campaigns that are happening, where you have former Trump officials saying Trump is going to revive another Civil War era law, the Comstock Act, and treat that as a ban. You have Trump saying he's for states' rights and not answering whether he's going to use the Comstock as a ban or not, which means voters are left really with no answers about what he's going to do. I don't know what he's going to do. He could use the Comstock Act or not. But even the possibility is something that voters really are going to have to consider when they go to the polls in November.
Yeah. Mary Ziegler, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.